With his speech titled The Ultimate Question, Lance Miller became the world champion of public speaking. Da, 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 da. So, with his presentation this evening, Leadership is Everybody's Business. Let's welcome accredited speaker, distinguished Toastmaster, Lance Miller.
Salazar, thank you for that. Just to correct it, I'm not an accredited speaker, but that's quite all right. I'm a ton of other things. Everybody, thanks for coming on tonight. Let me tell you something. I've been through a ton of Toastmasters trainings, and I'm going to tell you about probably 70, 80% of the Toastmaster trainings I've been through. I didn't learn anything new about how to really run a Toastmasters club. And what I want to try to give you today is just really hard-won experience that I've learned about running Toastmasters clubs. And as Salazar told you, I didn't do it on my own. Nobody builds a club by themselves, but I was an instrumental in my club. I was one of the core people that took a club that had about 35 active members in it. And this is back in 1993. We were down to 12 members coming to the club, and it was going down each week. And one week, 5 of us showed up. And we didn't have a meeting. We had something in America we call coffee. And we sat around and drinking coffee, and we go, what are we going to do? We're going to keep the club. We're going to close the club. What are we going to do? I was in the Toastmasters about 6 months at that point. But I remember one of the guys said, you know, if we're going to do this, let's win with Toastmasters. Or let's go do something else and win with it. And I coined this. I said, I don't want to sit here and run a hospice Toastmasters club. And what I mean by that is hospice Toastmasters. That's where we keep the members comfortable until the club dies. And there's a lot of clubs out there that are just right on the verge. They never really seem to get going. They never get up to good strength, and where they're really firing on all 8 cylinders, but they just hang on year after year after year. And in that meeting, somebody else said, now this is back in the 90s, and Toastmasters used to rank all the clubs internationally. And they said, look, they do this ranking. Let's be a top 10 club. And we said, that sounds great. Let's win and be a top 10 club. We had no idea what it took. We had no idea what the Distinguished Club program was. That just sounded like a cool goal. And we started working towards it. And it took us 5 years, but we turned the club around. And in 1999, the last year of that Distinguished Club program, we were the number 4 club in the world. We had 95 members. We had 57 education completions. And that was one of the biggest life-changing events I had, was learning how to run a Toastmasters club, because I learned how to work with people. I learned my soft skills that I needed so I could be more successful in business and in life. And note it was 6 years after that I won the world championship. So I really credit that strong Toastmasters club giving me an environment to develop my speaking skills so I could go on and win the world championship. But I want to talk to you today about really what I think some of the real benefits of the Toastmasters program are that I've gleaned from it. I've been very active in my club and my district. I've never been in the top 3, but I've run district conferences. I've been area governors. I've done tons of district training all over the world, really with the whole idea of building better clubs. And I want to tell you right up front, I'm not politically correct. And I don't pull my punches. I really think if we're going to get to the bottom of stuff, we got to be able to talk about it. And there's a lot of things I think going on in Toastmasters internationally right now that are counterproductive at the club level. I'm relatively vocal on those things, but I want you to know I'm not criticizing. I like strong Toastmasters clubs, and Toastmasters lives and dies at the club level. And to me, a strong club is 40 to 60 members. It's not 20 members. I don't like the current Distinguished Club program. It rewards mediocrity. But saying that, there's no reason that every club is not President's Distinguished, because we have the Olympics coming up this summer. It's like getting a gold medal in the Olympics for running a 30-minute mile. Everybody should be able to get a gold medal. That's my business partner's phone. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. He said, I'm in Fort Lauderdale on a business trip right now. So I want to talk about the fact that really in this building a club, leadership is everybody's business and what we're talking about. And that's really what I learned in building a Toastmasters club. I never came into Toastmasters to be a good Toastmaster. I came into Toastmasters because I needed a place to develop my skills to be better at life outside of Toastmasters. And that's what my viewpoint on Toastmasters is. I think Toastmasters, if I was promoting it, I would say Toastmasters, it's a great place to fail. It's a great place to screw up. Nobody has ever been fired from Toastmasters. You can screw up royally and come back the next week. You'll get an evaluation, you'll get a pat on the back, thumbs up, we'll see you next week. And I've screwed up royal in Toastmasters. Just for those of you that don't know it, I competed for 13 years in the international speech competition. I lost competitions for 12 years before I ever made it to the finals. I was prepared to lose them for another 12. I'm so thankful I had an organization that allowed me to come back after losing so much, because a lot of places would say, you've had enough, Lance, 3 times, look, let somebody else in here. No, Toastmasters let me lose as much as I needed. And one of the biggest things I learned in Toastmasters was how to lose. Okay, now a couple things I want to talk about regarding leadership. And the first thing, leadership is really misunderstood. And I want to give you some, what I consider some real stable viewpoints I have on leading organizations. And the first one is this simple fact, very difficult to apply because it is so fundamentally simple. Quite honestly, it is the bane of human existence on planet Earth. And if we were able to handle this, we would probably handle most of the social ills that we have on this planet. But leadership is not about creating people you can control. And I've seen so many people that feel that leadership is, I am your leader, therefore you will do what I say, and I will control you, and I'm in charge here. You're not. That's not leadership. Leadership is not about creating people you can control. It's about creating people you don't have to control. And with that, I'm going to talk about one little experience, one little thing that happened to me in Toastmasters. And I remember it was in the spring of 1999. The year before, we wanted to be a top 10 club. We were number 14. And we were like, oh, we were so close. The reason we were a top 10 club is because everybody in the club wanted to be a top 10 club. It wasn't me. There's no way I could have driven 95 people to do what they did. Everybody, it was a team effort. And that's when I said, it's not about a president controlling the club and making it happen. It's about the president getting the club to the place where they don't have to be controlled, but everybody's on board wanting to achieve what they want to achieve. Now, I can't see you very well, but I'm going to guess there are a lot of people here who've been vice president of education at some point in their Toastmasters career. Around May, here's what happens. When I do these live, I like to say, what happens in May? And this is the answer I get 100%. They go, you're begging people to finish a speaking level to get your DCP points. I think we can all relate to that. And I always go, they always seem to have nasal tones, and they go, I don't really want to do it that fast. I want to do it. I don't want to be pressured. I want to do it when I want to do it. Now, for me, I have a tendency to want to take those people out in the street and shoot them. Now, it's an American thing. I said that in New Zealand, and everybody was shocked. I said, it's an American thing, okay? What I mean is I don't like that attitude. We're trying to win as a club. We need you to finish your speaking level so we can get the points in. But here's what happened to my club. The members were calling the vice president of education, saying, you haven't given me enough speaking slots to finish my CC. I'm not going to be responsible for this club not being a top 10 club. You find me speaking slots. And that's when I meant we had people we didn't have to control. They were wanting to achieve the goals themselves and were working towards those goals. There's not a lot of people that I've talked to in Toastmasters that have experienced that in Toastmasters, which is usually a constant motivation with our membership. But that was the essence of 4 to 5 years of good leadership and a common goal that we were playing for. So the first thing is you're working with your club members this year. Work on getting them to accept the role of being what's it mean to be a club member? We have a Toastmasters promise that says, listen, you'll show up for meetings, you'll speak regularly, you'll operate in a friendly manner, all these things you'll do. Get them to do that. Say, this is what Toastmasters is. Toastmasters is not you show up every 3 weeks and speak when you want. Toastmasters is every meeting you show up, every meeting you have a role. Your table topics, your all counter, you're the grammarian, you speak, you coach, you're Toastmaster, you do all these things as part of your development, okay? Now, in doing this, one of the things I talk about Toastmasters is that we're a little bit like church. And what I mean by that is we revive the dead. And I think you can all relate to this. We watch people walk into our clubs that are this little huddled mass of a person. And 6 months later, they won't shut up. They come in near death, this little meek voiced shell of a person. And next thing we know, they are more alive than we've ever experienced in our life. And the degree that we can communicate in the world has a lot to do with how alive we are. And I have experienced that personally. But so with that, what happens, and there's a whole talk I can do on this. I'm just going to touch on it. The world is not a friendly place when it comes to communication. That's why it's so critical that Toastmasters is a friendly place. Because starting as little kids, the big people in our lives, starting with our parents, tell us to be quiet and sit there. And if we don't, they usually inflict some sort of pain or punishment on us. At least that's what happened in my family. And I went through this process of when I remember when I was probably about 8 or 10 years old, I got ready to do something. I looked at my mom and dad and I said, what would they say or do if I did that? And based on their thoughts, determined my actions. And at that point, I started giving up a little bit of the authorship of my life. Now, author is the root word to authority, and the author writes the story. And that means that the authority started writing the story of my life, and they started killing my creativity. So I didn't get rewarded for creativity. I didn't get rewarded for creativity in school. Nobody ever asked me to stand up and give an original thought. For 16 years, I studied what other people figured out. Nobody said, Lance, you go figure this out. But I learned if I sat in the seat at the right time, showed up, did what the authorities, the teachers told me, I would move to the next grade. Then I got a job and they said, sit here. Don't rock the boat, show up on time. If we like you, someday we'll promote you. And when we do that, we start turning off our own creativity. Now, the reason I go through that is most people I talk to have had a similar journey. Mine was less than most because there were certain things going on in my life that I was pushing out on, but in the workplace, in my family environment, it was very much the case. When we come to Toastmasters, we're free to create again. We're free to communicate again. And we have to give people that platform to start getting out of that shell, because for a whole lifetime, they have been conditioned that it's unsafe to communicate. They've said things that are embarrassing. They've said things that were true, but they got laughed at. They've said stupid things. We've all done that. And it becomes unsafe. Toastmasters is safe. It's a great place to screw up, a great place to fail, no consequence. Okay, so with that, we reignite the free will of the individual. And if you've been in this organization for a while, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we want to encourage people to push themselves outside their envelope. We want to encourage people to be greater than they think they can be. And we really do that from a leadership standpoint, first of all, by listening to them. That's the first thing we really have to get down, is being able to listen. Because if we listen, and as leaders in the club, a lot of times we want to start saying, this is what I need you to do. This is what's going to happen. I need people to show up on time. But the best thing I learned to do as a president of my club was to call people and just talk to them and ask them what they thought about the club and how's it going and what are you enjoying about it, and listen to them, because then they knew I cared. And probably the biggest reason people leave jobs, they leave groups that they belong to, is they don't think people care about them. And caring is a huge, huge part in Toastmasters and in leadership. That it's really the essence of it. Okay, now let's see what I got here. I have a PowerPoint. I don't really like to use it on Zoom that much because I shrink down to this little tiny screen, but I do want to show you this one slide I've got here. I'm going to share it with you. So it says here, the meaning of life. Let's see if that's going to pop up for me. There we go. The meaning of life is that you have, see, this is why I don't like to use PowerPoint on Zoom, is because it screws it up and you can't read the slide. What's that supposed to say? The meaning of life. Yes. This is a slide I created. Now, I can't get the reaction from you because we're on PowerPoint, but here's what it is. You have to figure it out for yourself. And probably the biggest thing I got really from one of the biggest things I got from my Toastmasters experience was the ability to look at things and realize that I could figure them out for myself. And there's this sort of viewpoint that, this is what I had. I thought everybody was struggling with Toastmasters Club, running a Toastmasters. I thought I was the only club. Our club was the only club struggling to run a Toastmasters Club. Everybody else was doing great. This is back in the 90s. Then I started going to the training. Then I started going out and seeing things. And I realized that everybody was struggling. And there was this viewpoint that Toastmasters International knows how to run a Toastmasters Club, and they're trying to teach us, and it's not working for us. And maybe I'm not smart. Maybe I don't know what's going on, because I went to the training and they told me how to run the club and it's not working. This is the analogy I use for Toastmasters International. They're a little bit like Home Depot. You can go there to get the tools to build your house, but they're not going to come build your house for you. And in Toastmasters, we'll give you the tools to build your club, but they're not going to build the club for you. And most people at Toastmasters International have never successfully run a Toastmasters Club. Quite honestly, I'm going to step out on a limb here, and I'm on safe, solid ground now. Most international directors in Toastmasters have never successfully run a Toastmasters Club. Most district directors in Toastmasters have never successfully run a Toastmasters Club. Now, that's going to come out in my definition of success. And my definition of success is 40 to 60 members, and you're getting 80% of the people through their educations, and it's a fun, winning environment. Most people have been in clubs that are struggling in 15 to 20 members or less, and they move on up to district leadership, and they never figure out how to really run the club. So a big thing is we got to take the gloves off and figure out how to run these things for ourselves. And that's really what happened in my club. We didn't go to the district to learn. And at this time, I was in District 52, and this is back in the 90s. That's down in San Fernando Valley. District 52 is a good, strong district now. But back in the 90s, we were one of the worst districts in Toastmasters. And I remember I was brand new in the organization, and I went to a district training, and I came away going, I've learned to do a lot of things in my life. And all I can tell you is nobody there knew how to run a Toastmasters Club. So we started figuring out for ourselves. And we started looking at what's it going to take to get those DCP points and make the club work. Okay. Now with that, let's look at just real briefly here, the definition of lead. I read a great book on leadership. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. And the title of it is The Dictionary. And I'm a big believer in really understanding what something means. Quite honestly, if we just understood the definitions of the words, it handles so much of what it comes from. The word lead, you'll go down to the derivation. Where did it come from? You know, there was a time on planet Earth that the word lead didn't exist. You know, we used to sit around campfires and grunt at each other. And then somebody said, well, instead of that grunt, let's give it a word, and that means a certain thing. And what it means to go to go, to travel. So if we're leading, the first thing we have to know is, where are we going? Now, what's happened with leadership is, I am your leader, therefore I will oppress you and you will do what I say, and we never feel like we're going anywhere. What turned my club around was we decided to go someplace. And like this picture, everybody got on board going there. Everybody wanted to be a top 10 club, so we're all working to go someplace. It was that simple. So I'm going to ask you right now, as leaders in your club, this is July, on June 30th, where do you want to arrive? Where do you want to be? Now, just so you know, I'm coming back in my club as president for the third time. My club doesn't have 95 members in it right now. Clubs have a life of their own. I won the world championship. I'm off traveling around the world. A lot of the key people left or had other jobs. We're like 35 members right now. We're rebuilding. My goal is to get us back up between 40 and 50 this year. We got 10 new members in last year. We've got a good growth trend going. So I know where we're going. And this is what the simplicity of Toastmasters is really this. How many members do you want to have in your club on June 30th? And how many educational completions do you want? Because I'm going to get into this. It's two primary things we do in Toastmasters: members in, members trained. That's really what we train. We do the program, we train them. How many? And pathways is a whole new game. But let's look, what we're doing is we're taking each level of pathways. How many pathways levels, not 5, just levels, do we want to accomplish this year? And my club doesn't know it, but I'm going to work with the members, and I'm going to try to get every member to do 3 pathways levels. That's my goal. Okay, so at the end of the year, I want to have between 40 and 50 members, and I want every member to have completed 3 pathways levels. That's where I want to be. So that's a destination. That's a target to go for. Now, here's my other game. I got to get my membership to agree to do that, because I can't control them. They have to be, they have to do it because I don't have to control them, that they want to do it. That's the secret of leadership. Okay. Now, as I'm going down through this, look, leadership really consists of 2 things. The 2 tools you have. Okay. Oh, I forgot this. Okay. It's knowing where you're going, and then it's arriving there. If you know where you're going and you arrive there, you're a leader. Okay. Now there's a lot to number 2, but if you don't know where you're going, you can't arrive there. So in getting everybody on board, you've got to know where you're going. Now, I have an analogy in here. When I was 20, I sailed across the North Atlantic, and I talk about my sailing trip. So I have some slides in here I might use. Okay, so organizations run on 2 things, and I learned this in Toastmasters, is where I learned it. First of all, they run on communication. You can see that. The amount of communication necessary to run a Toastmasters Club or any organization is grossly underestimated. And I don't mean emails. I mean getting on the phone, meeting people for coffee, sitting down and talking to them. In the last 2 weeks I've been president, I've had more communication. And I have a couple officers that I'm working with, and some of them need a lot of communication. I'm getting 15, 20, 30 emails from some people. And I answer each one, and I make sure that they're on board, and I'm communicating a lot as I go through it. I need to make sure that they know I appreciate them and that the communication is taking place. So we're putting a program in, like every Toastmaster, we talk to them every week before their Toastmaster, making sure they're all set on the meeting, they know what's going on. And we have our general evaluator, we talk to them, are you set for the meeting? The table topics, we talk to them, here's what we expect. You know, do you have any questions? What's going on? So they know we care. We have a lot of communication going. The other thing is it runs on agreement. And that's what we're going to get into here, the 5 points of agreement you have to have in any organization to lead. And I want you to look at that in regards to Toastmasters. What can you do in your club to get everybody on the same page? But you know, the simplicity is, I was talking about the Vice President of Education in May, calling somebody up, trying to get them to finish their speeches to complete a speaking level by June 30th. The issue there was no agreement to do it. If it was agreed to do, the person would have done it. And so it takes communication to build the agreement, but we need to start early in the year. So from a leadership standpoint, one of the things I would say, and I'm probably going to get into this in my PowerPoint later, is by the end of this month, you should have talked to every member in your club and had them write out the goal they want to accomplish being a Toastmaster this year. And that means how many speeches, what speaking level they want to accomplish, you know, what do they want to work on? And so that at the end of the year, you're working towards that. And that gives you the agreement on where they want to go this year. Okay, so in my club, July is spent really talking to the members, getting them focused on what's their experience in Toastmasters going to be. What do they want to accomplish? Then we're going to gear the year to see that they achieve that. Okay. I went over this. The amount of communication necessary is grossly underestimated. I use a football team as the example. Well, let's move on. Listening. This is one of my little clever things I do for my live competitions. Listening and silent are the same thing. Okay, let's see what we got. Creates importance. I already talked about that. It's not okay. It's not what you say. It's what's understood. Okay, agreement. I've got the points on agreement here. Okay, so my definition of agreement. Read a great book on agreement. You might have heard of it. It's called The Dictionary. Agreement is cooperation without conflict. So if you think about a band, you think about an orchestra, everybody's playing the same tune, no conflict. You look at an organization, 2 people get in the car, one of them, they want to go on vacation, one of them wants to go north, one of them wants to get south. They have there's no cooperation, there's conflict. Okay, so in your club, to the degree you have conflict, you don't have agreement. So as a leader, you welcome the conflict because it identifies where you need to put the agreement. And in my club, we put a lot of agreement in the club, on a lot of agreement. We have our own policies we've written. on table topics, calling order, how to handle upsets between members, all sorts of things. We used to have like these members get pissed at each other. They'd start copying everybody in the club on these emails, and everybody's like, what's going on? And we just said, no, you don't do that. You talk to them personally. If you can't, I think you get with one officer, and then, oh no, you meet with the president, and the president tries to sort it out. And we have what we call in my club the past president's council, which everybody who's ever been a president is a member of. If you can't resolve it with you and the president, you meet with the past president's council, which is right now about 20 members in the club. If you want to sit down with 20 people and try to discuss your disagreement, that's usually enough of an incentive for the people to solve what they've got going on. But just to give you an idea, we work to get cooperation, okay? How much cooperation do you need to be a pit crew in a NASCAR race car? You know, a lot of cooperation there. You have two choices when it comes to conflict. You can resolve it or you can dissolve it. And by dissolve it, what I mean, we have had to ask, I say nobody gets fired from Toastmasters, this is true, but we have had to ask the members to leave because they were too disruptive to the club and they wouldn't change. So we dissolved the membership with them because they wouldn't resolve the issues that they had. Those are the only two choices you have, or you continue to live with the conflict. As a leader, my recommendation is do not live with conflict, resolve it or dissolve it. Okay, 5 points of agreement. This is what I was wanting to get to. And this is the essence of what I want you to look at here. Okay, where are you going? We already talked about that. The definition of to lead is to go someplace. So you need to know where you're going. And I have a lot of adventure background. I've climbed a lot of mountains. I've rafted rough rivers. I've sailed across the Atlantic. I'm a private pilot. I've flown all over the Eastern United States. I've hitchhiked across Europe a number of times. For 7 years, I ran international marathons that we'd run 2,000 and 3,000 miles over about a 6-week period, promoting international human rights and religious freedom issues, great adventures. We always knew where we were going in those adventures. When it comes into business, organizations, where we're going is like how many in Toastmasters, how many members, and what's our training level? Maybe we need a new venue. You got to look at your club. Where do we want to be on June 30th next year? We want a new venue. We want 40 members. We want 30 of them having completed one Toastmasters Pathways level. You know, that's the type of thing we're looking at. Okay, I said I sailed across the Atlantic. I'm just going to give you an example here. Down in the left-hand corner is a little red arrow where you can see where we started. And up in the right-hand corner, there should be, I've got some stuff on my screen. There should be an arrow in Norway. And you have to know why are you going there is the next thing. So the why is really what motivates your members. Why are you an officer this year? I'm an officer this year, quite honestly, because I don't want to see my club to fail. And I've been an officer a number of times. There was nobody else that had the qualifications I had to step in right now to see that the club continues to grow. That's my why. I want the club to succeed. I've had tons of leadership experience. I've had tons of executives experience since I was first in Toastmaster. Okay, so I want to build the club and I want to see the club stay there. That's why I'm stepping up. But somebody else who's new to Toastmasters may have a why of getting over their stage fright. Somebody else may have a why of they want to compete and win at the district level in a competition. Everybody's got a different why, but the why is the purpose or the reason you're doing this. Okay, so we need to get people on board with that. The next one is how are we going to get there? How are you going to do it? And that's where we sit down and we say, okay, you know, how many speaking slots do we have in every meeting? There's some math you can do here. If you meet once a week, you normally have about 50 meetings a year. There's 52 weeks in the year. Usually a couple of weeks you don't meet, Christmas or something like that. You're not going to meet. You have some elections or competitions. So let's say you have 50 meetings a year. And let's just say you have 4 speech slots every meeting. How many speaking slots do you have for the entire year? Well, 50 times 4 is 200. Okay, well, this was really nice when we had the legacy program because there were 10 speeches in every speaking level. So 200 will allow you to get 20 completions at 100% efficiency. Pathways throws a little bit of a wrench in the system because not every Pathways level is the same amount, but there's 2 to 4 speeches or 3 to 4 speeches per Pathways level. So let's just say it's 4 speeches per Pathways level. So that means basically you can get 50 pathways levels done with 200 speaking slots in your year. So we start to look at how we're going to get there. Okay. And we start working the plans out on it. And like I said, with this, when I sailed, we didn't just go straight to Norway. We went to Bermuda, we went to the Azores, went to Ireland, we went up around the Irish Sea, across the Caledonian Canal, and up to Norway. That's how we were going to get there. Okay. And when we were sailing there, this is the organization, the planning, the strategy, tactics, the administration of it, the policy we're going to follow. This is a big step. But if you put this in with your leadership, you start to get everybody, you start to build agreement on how we're going to get there. And with that agreement, you start to get cooperation, you start moving towards the target. Okay, the next one, is who is doing what? Now, a lot of conflict comes up in organizations because different people are trying to do the same job and people think they're stepping on their toes and someone's trying to be in charge of an area that they're not responsible for. So clearly defining who's doing what is very critical. Now, when I was sailing, I'm just going to tell you, we knew who was raising the sails when we were moving along. We knew, exactly the positions we were in. We knew who was at the helm. We knew who was in the kitchen. We knew what positions we had when we sailed, and they rotated. So every shift or every watch, they would change to different positions. Okay. In Toastmasters, we have 7 officer positions, and I have a whole rundown on what each officer position does, but we have to know who brings the guest in, who signs up the members, who makes sure that the meetings are filled, who sets up the meetings location so it's correct. Okay, we clearly define who's doing what. We actually have some extra positions we put in my club because we needed to fill some, as we were figuring out for ourselves, we've had to figure out some things that we needed that we make sure we get done all the time. As an example, when we had 95 members, scheduling was a nightmare. So we added a VP of production who did nothing but scheduling, and the vice president of education did nothing but monitor education achievement because the scheduling was the biggest problem we had from that standpoint. The last thing is, what metrics are you going to measure? Now, it's very hard to tell how you're doing if you don't have hard metrics you're measuring. Let's look at sailing. When I was sailing, we had our compass heading. We monitored that. That was the main thing we went across the ocean with, was what's our compass heading. We had our boat speed we monitored, the miles traveled every day. These are all hard metrics. Our longitude and latitude, we did celestial navigation to make sure we knew where we were on the surface of the earth, which is not super exact. We used barometric pressure to know what was happening with the weather as it was coming in. We could pick up radio frequencies and triangulate our location. Okay, now in Toastmasters, what metrics would you measure? Jackie, I'll just say, when we get this COVID thing over, I look forward to getting up and seeing you guys. We're gonna do these things live because I really like having dialogue on this. But a couple things you want to measure: total number of members in your meeting, total number of members in your club. The total members attending each meeting are something you should monitor. We graph it. We have a graph that we keep throughout the year. How many members attended each meeting? We can see trends. If our member attendance is trending down, we got a problem. The number of guests each meeting, that's another thing you should measure. The number of Toastmaster speeches. We do not allow any speaking in our club that is not a Toastmasters pathway speech. Toastmasters is a program that circles around specific educational exercises. And if you just want to get up and talk, go to Rotary or go to the Chamber of Commerce and just go talk. That's not what Toastmasters is. So the number of speeches given, that's another thing that we metric. The number of education completions is another thing that we measure. The number of new members is something we measure. Because of that, we know in my club, it takes 6 guests to get a new member. It's been that way for 15, 20 years. 6 guests on average generate 1 new member. So if we want 10 new members, we need 60 guests. We have those metrics. Okay. So your metrics in your club may be completely different. Okay. Now here's the point. If you're not managing by the metrics, are you managing by fact or opinion? And the metrics allow you to manage by fact. Now opinions are a little bit like armpits. Everybody's got a couple, but nobody wants to experience the other person's. Okay. So a lot of management in business is opinion. I don't think you're doing a very good job. I feel you should have, your heart's really not in your job. What are your sales stats? Or, did I get the account reconciled on time? What are the facts of my job is really what we should be measuring. What else do I have in here? Oh, the 4 P's of leadership. Okay. So leadership is designed to get production. The product of moving towards where you're going. And in this case, it's the number of members coming in and the number of education completions for that membership. That's the production. Okay. Now, before production, you have to have a plan. Okay. So you put your planning in, that gets your production. But before you can plan, you have to have prediction. And before you can have prediction, you have to have perception. You have to be able to see what's going on. That's why these hard metrics were so important to me. Now, I'm going to use an example. First of all, I was 19 when I got my pilot's license, and this was where I really figured this out. Flying, it was all about perception and then prediction. I had a flight plan, and then I could produce the flight. But when I was flying, I had to know my altitude, I had to know my airspeed, I had to watch for other airplanes, I had to watch for weather, I had to, I had to perceive my oil temperature, I had to perceive my fuel burn, I had to perceive all those things. And based on those, I had to predict what was going to happen so I could then execute the plan and get to production. Okay. Now, so what happens is we actually start with perception, and we perceive, and then we can predict based on prediction, and then we can plan based on that prediction, then we can get our production. Now, I'm going to give you a silly example. We've all driven down the freeway with the cruise control on in the car. And we're cruising down, and we're coming up on a car. We're in the right-hand lane. We're coming up on a car or a truck or something that's going a little slower than we are, and there's a car passing us. And we're watching the car in the mirror passing us as we come up on the car in front of us, and we're trying to figure out, is the car going to pass in front, or do I have to hit the brake and come off the cruise control? I think we've all been there. Well, what we're doing, we're perceiving how fast the car is going to pass us, and will I be able to keep the cruise control on and slide out? Based on that prediction, based on that perception, we're predicting, do I need to hit the brake, or am I okay? And then you say, okay, I'm going to be okay. I predict I'm going to be okay. The car goes by, we execute the plan and produce the move. Okay, so this follows down into the most minute areas of leadership and action and production. So in your club, you need to be monitoring these metrics so you can perceive what's happening, predict where your club's going. Back when my club had 12 people coming to the meetings with 35 on the roster, we weren't doing this. And we just knew the club was struggling. We sat down and started looking at the secretary's reports, and we started putting some, looking at how many people came and stuff. Since we graph it every week, we can see the trends pretty quickly. Here's another, just a quick, great leadership point. It's called an attainable goal. And if you're trying to turn your club around, don't go, and you may be saying 40 members, Lance, I can't believe it. Don't say we're going to be 40 members and 30 people are going to complete. You got 8 people in the club. That's too big of a goal. People take losses on that. But let's just say you have 8 people in the club, and you say, listen, by the end of August, let's get 10 people in the club. And let's see if we can get 2 people to complete a pathways level by the end of August. It's something that you can attain. Now, there's a friend of mine in the National Speakers Association called Mark Eaton. Mark just died recently, about 6 or 8 weeks ago. Mark played for the Utah Jazz. And when he came in to play for the Jazz, they were losing tremendously. They were losing every game by like 8 points or something. And he said the coach didn't say, all right, we're going to win a game. He said, let's see if we can win a game. Let's see if we can lose a game by 4 points. So they started playing basketball. They're a professional basketball team. They're trying to lose the game by 4 points. And then I think it was 6 the first time. Then he went to 4. And then he said, let's try to lose the game by 2 points. And he goes, at that point, we're not going to lose the game by 2 points. That's ridiculous. If we can lose the game by 2 points, we can win it. But when they were losing on an average by 8 points, if he said, we're going to win a game, it was too steep of a goal. But the attainable goal was lose the game by 6 points. Okay. They took a win on that, lose it by 4 points. They took a win on that. And then they started saying, hey, you know what? We can win. And that's what I've seen. One of the greatest tools I've used in Toastmasters or in leadership was giving people, groups I was leading, giving my teams attainable goals and then celebrating when they hit it. Even though the goal I had was a lot higher, a lot bigger, I give them something that we could do. And then they got the confidence and their morale came up. Now, as I said, when I started sailing across the ocean, we didn't just say, we're going to sail to Norway. Get in the boat, let's go. No, the first attainable goal was we're going to sail. We're going to sail to Bermuda. We got to Bermuda. What do? We celebrated. We validated the fact that we arrived there. Great job. We had 4 days in Bermuda, riding mopeds all over, drinking British beer, doing all that sort of stuff. Then we went to the Azores. We spent a week in the Azores, touring islands, crawling down like volcanoes and hot springs and all sorts of stuff. We validated the arrival in the Azores. Then we went to Southern Ireland. I had my first Guinness in an Irish bar on the south coast of Ireland. We celebrated. Then we went up through the Irish Sea, and then the crew validated across the Caledonian Canal. And then we had a big win when we got to Norway. But we all had attainable goals along the way. We didn't just keep going. We're going until we hit the final goal. So give your team some attainable goals. This is a graph I use. This could be a toast. That's the same trip I just went on. I just turned it into a graph. This could be your Toastmasters Club. You're starting out right now and you're saying, look, let's get up to, what do I have in here today? Let's get up to, I said in a business, let's get up to $18,000 and let's build it up to $20,000. And then let's keep going with attainable goals. On the left side here, that could be membership. On the left side, it could be educational completions. Let's just move this thing up and get attainable goals going. Okay, so in leadership is everybody's business. It takes abundant communication. Create agreement with your group with attainable goals, okay? Give them bite-sized goals they can win with and validate what people do right. And that's really what it's about. Just talk about how great they're doing, okay? And when you do that, people start doing more and more right. That was the essence of my world champion speech, was validating what's right in people. And I learned that running my Toastmasters Club, quite honestly. I had a lot of other lessons in life on that, but I learned that running my Toastmasters Club. Okay, it's about 1:45. Salazar, do you want to give me some questions? We can have some interaction with the people here.
Well, actually, Lance, nobody has entered a question in here, but I don't know if they were just so enthralled with what you're going, but let's open that up. People, if you have questions, put them into the chat room so we can get some additional wisdom from Lance as we go forward.
And the reason I'm going over this is that this system I put together, and I really learned it doing adventures, but I codified it being in Toastmasters, and I've been applying it in business ever since. And I have a management group that Salazar was talking about, Miller, Knudsen, and DeRay, but we actually, we are just launching a brand new business right now that's why I'm in Fort Lauderdale. And we have a line of highly sustainable products for commercial use that save 25% on air conditioning cost. And we save 25% on water with irrigation and boost crop yields. And this is because we've been working with all these different companies. But the reason I'm doing the stuff I do in my life is because I perfected these soft skills in my Toastmasters environment. And like I said, I never got into Toastmasters to be a great Toastmaster. I am a pretty good Toastmaster, but that wasn't the purpose, was to be great in Toastmasters. The purpose was to work my skills out so I could be more successful out in life. So anyway.
So we do have some questions. So now they've started coming in. The one thing we want to let Philip Plath know is, he said, what have I done with my wasted life? I'm not sure you're the one who can answer that, but we want to let him know if he's here, he hasn't wasted his life. So.
Trust, we all feel that way. Trust me. The older we get, the more we feel, God, I could have been a contender.
Yeah. But Alex did ask, what did you mean by facts and opinions? And wondering if you could clarify that point.
Sure. Let's just say you're running your Toastmasters Club. Let's keep it something we're all familiar with. And, I used to have a president that would stand up and say, we're really not doing well. You're not putting your heart into your speeches. The speech evaluations are not very good. And nobody's going to be in this club unless they're a competent communicator and, and stuff. There wasn't a fact in anything he said. A fact is we had 18 people we've averaged 18 people a meeting for the last 4 meetings. And we've averaged 5 speakers per meeting, or we've gotten 12 people up in table topics, and right now we're online with the planning we have to have, I'm just gonna say like 20 pathway level completions this year. These are hard facts. And there was a sign. I mean, a fact is, what speed are you going down the freeway? It's right on your speedometer. It tells you how fast you're going. An opinion is you're driving too fast. You're driving too slow. That's an opinion. Okay, what's the fact? And so I hope that answers it. But what we're trying to do is get some hard numbers that are real. And quite honestly, dealing in management, dealing with so many groups that I have, this is a huge problem for mankind. People take opinions as facts all the time. The news media is insane on this. They put opinions out as though they're facts all the time. Because I've had a lot of specific organizational training to discern facts from opinions. I listen to the news and I go opinion, 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 opinion. I said, the facts are yesterday's sports scores and what the temperature was yesterday. Everything else is opinion in the news. Okay, so with that, there's a lot of opinion that we get hit with every day. But I said facts are how much money is in your bank account. What time did you get home from work? That's a fact. How much milk is in the refrigerator? Is there enough to put on the cereal in the morning? You got to go to the store. That's a fact. Okay.
So Lance, Victoria had just wanted to comment that she loved your hospice analogy because that's how she felt about her club. And it was too draining and she had to walk away. If you were in a situation where your club was draining you, is there a recommendation you could make to us to say to regenerate ourselves to help regenerate the club?
Well, here's what I say. There's all sorts of situations in life that are tough. Quite honestly, this last year, my entire business dissolved. I had a pretty good speaking business. I was trying to expand that, and I was trying to get some other products launched. And with COVID, everything dissolved. And you could say, well, it's sort of draining. I'm going to walk away from it. There was nowhere to walk. I had to make things go right. Thus, I said I just put a management group together, and then we're scrambling now because of the work we did. We have a really great portfolio of products that we're bringing out. But let's look at that with Toastmasters. You have a group of people, and really what it comes down to is the decision of those individuals in the club. Do they really want to build it? Do they have the purpose of keeping the club going? And from my standpoint, I said the purpose is what our driver is. And if they don't have the purpose of building the club, and they're just sort of there because they don't have anything better to do on Thursday night, you're probably not going to turn the club around. But it also doesn't mean you can't create the purpose or ignite the purpose in it. But you have to make a decision of whether you're going to survive or whether you're going to succumb. And you have to do that in Toastmasters, and you have to do that in life. And I've had to do that more times than I care to talk about. But there have been times my back's against the wall. I think everything's lost, and I'm about ready to lay down and die. And I go, screw this. I'm not going to lay down and die. And I start fighting back, and I fight back on the thing. And so, with your Toastmasters environment, you got to sit down and have some heart-to-hearts with your members. You want to build this thing back up. This is what it's going to take. Go out to the district. Go out to some of the top clubs in the district. Go see them. Talk to them. What do you do? Maybe there's one or two members that'll come and join your club or give you some of that life energy you need in your club, but you decide you're going to survive, and you survive, or you decide you're going to succumb, and you succumb. And that's really, really sort of what it comes down to. That's sort of harsh and cold and mean. I'm sorry, but I've had to do that so many times in my life. And like I said, we had a dying club. We decided to build it to a top 10 club, and we turned the whole thing around. We revitalized members that weren't coming to the club for months. Okay, we were able to do that. A lot of people, a lot of clubs, the people in the club, they do not have the drive, the purpose, the desire to do that, and the club dies. So that's just the sort of the cold, hard truth of it. I wish I had a specific answer for you.
Well, that is a specific answer. As you mentioned, it's about the members. The members don't want to engage. You don't personally carry them. One of the things I thought that was very powerful also in your sailing trip to Norway is it reminded me of a club I was part of that the president set a goal, we're going to be distinguished. And then through the year, he said, hey, we could be select distinguished. Hey, we could be president's distinguished. And it was a lot like your validation points all the way through. But Jenny Liu has an interesting question. She said that America's number one fear is no longer public speaking, but corrupt government officials, according to Chapman University's annual survey. And Chapman University was obviously surveying non-corrupt officials. And she said, what do you suggest for helping clubs become the place where ethical leaders are made?
I think fact and opinion is a big issue on that. I think common goals. are in there. One of the things that we work on in my club, there's not a lot of topics at all that are out of bounds in my club, but the speaker has to know if they bring a topic that is, let's say, controversial to the club, they're not going to be coached on the fact that the topic's controversial. They're going to be coached on how well they delivered it. And we're going to help them say it better. So if they go out in the world and want to talk about that subject, that they're going to be able to engage people better with it. There's a lot of issues in Toastmasters. Most of them deal, from my viewpoint, in confusions and incompetence of the people running the organization. And I don't mean that from a cruel standpoint. I mean, I was confused and incompetent when I came into Toastmasters. And as an organization, what we do is we take incompetent people and we put them in leadership roles and we say, figure it out. And about the time you become competent at it, we replace you and put another incompetent person in the role. Okay, that's how it works. So a lot of things we have is that we have some issues with that without corruption. Ethics is a whole other subject, but to me, the whole aspect of running our organization is running it for the benefit of the members. And the whole thing about being a politician and running a country is running for the benefit of the country and the citizens in the country, and not for some personal private interest from that standpoint. So I think there's probably something that we could work on that. But the purpose of Toastmasters is not a course in ethics. It's a course in finding your voice and getting the thoughts out of your head and learning how to give people feedback in an effective manner and run effective meetings and the soft skills we actually need to interact with mankind.
All right. Well, and while Hussein had a question, he did end up putting it in the chat, but I wanted to see if he would like to ask his question himself because he had his hand up for quite a while.
That's fine.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lance. Yeah, that was very interesting actually to listen to you and how you can have a very specific goal and how you can achieve it. Very interesting talk, and thank you very much. That was very useful. My question to you is, why do we need to focus on these specific goals? What if I do focus on making the club a very nice experience for everybody, and I like everything that you said, and I would like to apply it. Why should I still worry about getting the numbers that can get me to become a nominated distinguished club or whatever? Can you say more about that?
Certainly. The hallmark of Toastmasters is personal improvement. We don't sit around and hold hands and sing Kumbaya and feel good with each other. That's really not what the program is. The program is developing your communication and leadership skills. And there's a lot of people I know that don't have good, strong leadership skills, and they're afraid to go lead a group and do something. And leadership sort of contagious from that standpoint. So what happens is people will default down to, well, I'm just comfortable doing this. Let's just have a good time for everybody to come in. The good, strong clubs that I've seen have good, strong goals. And when people come into them, those people improve, the members improve because they're pushed. They're pushed outside their comfort zones, and they're in a dynamic environment to improve. A friendly environment, but a dynamic environment to improve. And your club will be as strong as members find value in the time they spend in your club. And if they're not gaining improvement, and there's 4 areas we have 4 areas of development in Toastmasters. This is a good time to cover that. If they're not gaining improvement in their life, they will stop coming to your club because there's no purpose to it anymore. They can sit at home and feel good watching YouTube. Okay. I've seen so many people come in that were, like I said, scared, this huddled shell of a human being, and their life turned around and they walked with their head high and a twinkle in their eye, and they had self-esteem and they had confidence and they had competence because of their Toastmasters experience. And they were believers because we had, in that case, revised the dead. But let me just go through this. There's 4 areas of development that we have in Toastmasters. One is speaking. And speaking has 2 components to it. One is the prepared speaking program. The second one is table topics. I've gotten as much out of table topics as I have the prepared speeches because when I'm in life, I know how to think on my feet. And if I don't know the answer to something, I don't walk up and go, oh gosh, I just got to ask something. I don't know what the answer is. That's the whole drill of table topics. And we have a very specific way we deliver table topics in my club. You ask the entire group the question, and you wait a second, and then you call on the person to come up. So everybody gets the question, and they have that mental walk up going, oh no, what am I going to do? And then somebody else gets it, but it's that walk up every single time that after a while you get, so it does not lock up. So table topics and prepared speaking, that's one area of development. The second area is effective. We call it speech evaluation. In my club, we call it coaching, because I can evaluate you and tell you you're fat and your hair's messed up and I didn't do any good. The whole idea is to coach you to a higher level, coach you to a higher level of competence. So we put the word coaching in, and people don't hire speech evaluators. People hire speech coaches, okay? But how to give effective feedback that builds competence in another individual. You learn that in Toastmasters through effective speech coaching. The third area of development is effective meeting management. This starts with being table topics master. You run a little section of the meeting. It starts with being the general evaluator, and then it starts with being the Toastmaster. You go through those roles, and once you can get up and run the meeting effectively, you know how to run meetings, you're now more competent at that. People love to come to my meetings outside of Toastmasters because they start on time, they're efficient, they run on time, and they end on time. They got agendas. I'm at the front door greeting them when they come in the conference room. I learned all that in Toastmasters, effective meeting management. The fourth area is effective leadership and how to be a team member. You learn to be a team member by being in the club. You learn the leadership by being an officer. So those are the four areas that you're developing. And if you're just sitting there going, well, why should I have goals? Where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you meeting? You're just going to meet and a couple people are going to stand up and give a talk and, oh, that was nice. Morale, happiness, competence, contentment, all those things come from accomplishment. So you want people to accomplish things and you'll build a strong club. That's a long-winded question, but that's why I feel you should have specific goals you're moving towards, and the club should embrace those because it's involved in them, and they should be achieving them, and they should reward them, and then they feel great that they made something happen.
Lance, we're going to take a moment to let people know that we officially end at 7 p.m. Lance has agreed to continue to stay and answer questions. So for those of you who have asked a question, if you want to stick around, we're not done. We also want to invite you next Thursday, July 22nd, to our next TLI right here, 6 p.m. With Patrick Hardy sharing how to deal with change by what to do when disaster strikes. So go to d101tm.org. Look up the Toastmaster leadership portion and go ahead and make sure you're registered for that. With that, we're going to journey now to our next question, Lance, which was from Allison King. Does your revitalization boil down to getting everyone to commit to a set of goals? How are folks held accountable? And then she moves on. What gets the real buy-in when goals have been set?
Okay, so.
Oh, there's Allison right there.
That's fine. So Toastmasters is a voluntary organization. So we don't mandate you have a goal. You can come to the club, not have a goal. We're going to strongly suggest it. We're going to work with you. We're going to say, well, what do you want to, if somebody just goes, I just don't want any. I said, okay, great. Will you come to the meetings? Yes, participate in the meetings. Okay, and what we're going to do is as we go along, we're going to put them in as all counter and grammarian and timer, and we're going to try to get them to be table topics master. And we're going to sit here and say, well, can you do a speech in 3 weeks? And then we're going to look at it and get them through a couple levels and work with them on it. And we're going to start to see that the reason they wouldn't want to get a goal is that, first of all, most people have experienced more loss than success in life. And I don't want to set a goal because I'm not going to achieve it and it's going to be another loss. That's one of the things I've seen. I'm so afraid of speaking, or I lack the self-confidence that I can do that. So we totally accept that. We've had people that came to my club back, especially when we were meeting live. This last year and a half's been odd. But we had people who came and sat in the club for freaking 6 months before they ever said anything. They were so nervous about speaking, they just came and sat. We had one girl one time, we have a break in the middle of our meeting, and she goes, at the break, she goes, I've got to get up and speak. I've got to do it now. And she'd finally gotten the courage. And I said, okay, which it was completely not on the agenda. I said, we're going to have Peggy come up and say a few words. After the break, she came up, she stood up there and she talked for like 2 or 3 minutes. And she was like, I did it, and sat back down. And it was like, yeah, we'll adjust that. We'll get you on the goal. But the first thing is, we don't mandate. This is a friendly environment. We don't mandate you do it, and everything's done in a friendly manner. Okay, so but the whole point is, we also have a club culture, and that club culture says you're going to accomplish certain things in our club. Okay, how do you hold people accountable for it? You write the goals down at the beginning of the year, and then you love them to death and talk to them throughout the year. And you don't wait till May 30th to say, you've got 15 speeches you need to do in June to get your goal hit. We're working with them and in communication all the time. And if you're not, then that's, like I said, the amount of communication necessary to run any organization is grossly underestimated. That means you're monitoring people. And if somebody hasn't spoken for 6 weeks and you know you got to get them on it, you say, hey, you know, you gave me that goal back in July. Well, I don't know if I want to do that. We're counting on it. The club's counting on that goal. There's people counting on you. And one of the things you learn in Toastmasters is how to be a team member. Okay. And we want to keep the club strong. The club needs you to do this and, you know, to move through it. We're going to help you. There's no consequence in failing. Nobody's going to, you know, stop sending you Christmas cards or, you know, write your high school class and tell them what a fool you were. Nobody's going to do that. Let's just get you up and you do a speech, you know, and get them up and talk them into it. But it is creating that culture. And one of the things this I'll hit on here, when we did an analysis on why my club was failing back in '93, what came up was it wasn't fun and friendly. Long story to that, but the members stopped coming because it wasn't fun and friendly. We had 2 presidents in a row that weren't fun and friendly. One of them was really draconian and changing laws and yelling at us every meeting on how bad we were doing and nobody's working hard enough, and people stopped coming. So we have policy in my club, and the number one policy, the most senior policy we have that everything emanates from, is that we maintain a fun, friendly environment. We do not get serious. We do not get mad at people. We don't yell at them. We don't tell them that they're, you know, we maintain a fun, friendly environment. And with that, everything is done in a very fun, friendly manner. And you remember the club, and we're so excited to have you here. And we want to see what we can do to help you be the best person you can be. And we also want to have the strongest club in the district. We just got news. I just got news, an email. Somebody tracks all the clubs in the world, and we were 38 in the world this year for education achievement. Okay, I think that's pretty sorry for Toastmasters internationally that I have a club with, I get about 26 people to a member. I think we had 52 education completions this year. I think things would be a lot higher than that, but my club was 38th in the year this year in education completions, you know? And so that gave me a nice thing. I said, next year I want to be a top 10 club in education completion. So watch out, club, here we go. But anyway, keep it fun, keep it friendly, and love people to death. That's the best thing I could say. And it's taught me how to do that at work. And so at work, it's really easy to come down on people as they're getting paid. It's taught me how to love people at work and be fun and friendly. And I've had 3 people in my life tell me I was the best boss they ever had. And that's the highest compliment I've ever had in my life, because I've worked for some of the worst people in the world.
Allison, your hand is still raised. Did you have a follow-up, or is that from before? Thank you, ma'am.
It's from before. Basically, my answer was that you just love, you harass them with love, is what it sounds like. We set lots of goals before, and people are all geared up in the beginning, and then they just lose sight of them. So it sounds like you got to keep harassing them with love.
You do that, and the other thing is you set the goals, and then you that's part of measuring the metrics. Right? You're measuring how many miles, how many people have we got? You put the goal up. Our goal this year is this many speaking completions. And you have a target. We used to hang it up in the club and say, this is where we are and this is what's going. And then every time somebody completes something, we announce it and we say, Karen just completed level 1 of presentation mastery. Everybody goes, yeah, we got our next one. You announce it and you reward it. You know, so people know they're making progress and they get rewarded for it, and they see the club's making progress and they realize I need to contribute to that. You don't just let people complete and never say anything about it, and don't have a metric up there that they can see so they can see if they're hitting their target or not. Like that map to Norway, you could see we were making progress, and we had sailing charts that we were charting our progress. We knew we were making progress.
You know, AJ had a question that he sent also is, what do you do with a club that just wants to meet for social needs and table topics? No real speeches. Of course, there's an official.
You just, Salazar, you just muted yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say there's an official answer, but what's Lance's answer?
Well, you gotta, it's gonna come back to that second agreement point. What's the purpose of the club? We have a club in LA that we have a place called the Jonathan Club, which is downtown. It's like an old, it's like a country dining and gymnasiums and swimming pools and stuff in an old building. And they have this club down there. And I've had probably 7 area directors, used to be area governors, call me and say, this club won't do manuals. They do their own meetings and, stuff. And what it is a bunch of old guys that like to do their own thing. And they said, what do I do to get them to do it? I say, you don't, you go start another club and let them just do what they're going to do, because that club is never going to change. And the amount of energy you're going to put into trying to change that club, you can start 4 other clubs. Okay. So let them meet and to go in there and love them and just say, okay, great. You guys are doing what you guys are doing what you're doing. But if you have a club, all they want to do is meet socially and do table topics, and they're a successful club, they're not getting any DCP points. You could talk to them about the purpose of Toastmasters, but what's the purpose the membership has? They've got to have a purpose for wanting to do it, and that's really where you hit on this thing. And if they go, no, we don't want to do that. We just enjoy drinking wine. We have 6 beers on tap here. We got 12 whiskeys over here and a really nice humidor full of cigars. And we like meeting and doing table topics. And that's the purpose of our club. He said, God bless you. I'm going to go form another club. If they go, you know what, you're right, Lance. We could pump this thing up. We could have some fun. There's some really cool speeches. We could hear about people's adventures. We could do some table topics and we get 2 speeches and we learn. Then you have the purpose for doing it. Good. You're moving them along. The biggest thing is you're learning skills for succeeding in life. And I'm just going to back this up. It's not about succeeding in Toastmasters. You're learning skills for succeeding in life, because you're going to run into some organization or some group like that in your life that is not doing what they need to do. And your Toastmasters experience gives you the skills to handle the thing that when it really matters.
See, and I always thought it was my Marine Corps experience as a machine gunner that gave me the skills.
That probably works for you, and that does work in certain environments.
No, I got it. One other thing I would like to add to that, though, is actually every chartered club must meet 12 times a year and give speeches with oral and written evaluations. So they're not a club, they're not a Toastmaster club. But.
Well, that's what I said. That you have some things and you go, well, they're probably not going to last. You got to qualify, and Toastmasters is a certain program.
Right.
They're not doing the program. They're doing something else. They're doing a social, they're a cigar, wine, and whiskey club with, forced dialogue between the people, answering unexpected questions and learning to speak after drinking, or whatever. I mean, I'm making it all up. You understand?
I know. Well, Philip, we'll get to you next, but I want to do a follow-up with Jenny Lou. Jenny Lou had a follow-up. It said, what do you think about this quote from Dr. Smedley in Personally Speaking that says, unless the qualities which make for leadership are present in the individual, it's hardly possible that any amount of instruction will ever make him a leader. Neither can you teach leadership to people who lack leadership ability.
I haven't seen that. If you looked at me 40 years ago, the person that I've developed into is a vastly different individual with a tremendous amount more skills to communicate and work with people than I had. Now, I had a lot of inherent talent that was there, but I do not subscribe to we are cast with a certain DNA oriented personality at all. I've seen people change. I've changed dramatically over my life, handled things that were huge barriers and weaknesses that are now great strengths. I've watched other people do the same. I think the biggest thing is the proper gradient. That's what I was talking about, like attainable goals. You take a person and you don't think they have any leadership skill. Well, maybe they'll be the sergeant at arms and they'll set the meeting up. And they start to get a little confidence in setting a meeting up. and then, I don't know, maybe you have them be table topics master and they run the meeting for 20, 30 minutes doing table topics and they start to develop some skill. What typically happens, I've seen with most people is that, and it comes back to the essence of the speech I won the world championship with, is that the world has a tendency to invalidate us. And when we do that, the word validate means to make stronger, invalidate means to make weaker. And so the world has a tendency to a lot of times try to make us weaker. And that's done by people that are themselves not strong, but want weak people around them because they're not strong. And really the whole game in Toastmasters is helping people become stronger individuals. So we want to validate what they're doing and make them stronger. And I've seen so many people that I thought, couldn't have spoke or led their way out of a wet paper bag turn out to be actually pretty dynamic individuals when they were given the opportunity to do so without getting smacked down. They were able to get on their feet, get their confidence up, and then all of a sudden they took off. And I think that's really one of the things this organization brings, is that safe environment for people to stand up and start finding themselves.
Well, and I think I also want to comment, Lance, is that I do believe that leaders are born, because I've never met a leader that hasn't been born. So I think
I thought I was going to have to get in a big argument with you.
Oh my God. Nice one, Salazar.
But we have two more questions. We're going to go with Philip, and then we'll close out with Loretta.
Okay.
So Philip, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Salazar. And Lance, thank you so much for your presentation. I really am wondering about my wasted life. But beyond that, I have to ask you the comment you made earlier about no such thing as non-pathway speeches. We've all been in clubs where we've seen professionals who want to get their content out there. Do you just sort of hide that behind the veil of a pathway speech so we get credit for it? Or are you saying that we must go by the book when it comes to our educational forum?
No, I'd say you do a speech, you evaluate it for the Toastmasters program. The person's going to work on anything they want. I've done 35 CCs. I'm a double DTM. I've just finished my 5th level in pathways. I'm not a fan of pathways. I'm not going to drive down that rabbit hole right now. Anyway, I said I wasn't politically correct and I don't pull my punches, but I'm going to do that here on this one. But what you do is you work on what you want, but have it evaluated based on the club gets credit for what you did. So let's just, because the pathways is sort of all over the board with what it's doing and the paths it's got. Let's go back to the CCs. Person wants to work on their speech. Good. They're doing number 5, I think, which is vocal variety. Speech, they're working on some specific skills, but you're gonna evaluate them on vocal variety. They're going to get credit for that speech. But I'm going to give you feedback on 5 other things, including your vocal variety. But that's the speech you're doing. You're getting credit for it. You don't stand up and just give a speech without a Toastmasters evaluation project attached to it. But you may be working on skills that are way beyond what that specific evaluation project is for. But the club needs the credit for that speech. You're in a program that otherwise, if you don't do it per the Toastmasters program, you're just Toastmaster. The Toastmasters starts to fall apart because it is a program doing working on specific skills that Pathways presents to us. But there's no Toastmasters police. You got to realize that. Nobody has ever been arrested for giving a Pathway speech that didn't actually cover the things in the Pathway speech, but get credit for it.
Actually, thanks so much, Lance. I have to share this one comment from Becky Davinsky, though, that says, it says, Lance, you're a world-class speaker and leader. And also she said a thank you to the organizers of tonight's event. So thank you to all those who did that. But
I got to tell you, I can see I'm in trouble right now because I see AJ just popped on the screen with me and she's in my club. She's my secretary this year.
oh.
She's going to listen to everything I say. She's going to go home and tell on me now.
Well, she asked the question earlier too, but how do you give the last question, which is from Loretta, because we got to remember Lance is on the East Coast. It's coming up on 10:30, so let's give him a break. It's how do you give a non-political correct evaluation?
Oh, and how do you give a non-politically correct evaluation?
Yeah, and maybe you don't, but how would other people do it?
Yeah.
wait, you're saying don't give a politically, okay, oh, here's
How to give
no,
a
no, I'm trying to think a non-politically correct.
correct evaluation.
Yeah, I would never try to give a politically correct evaluation anyway. And I have a whole program, just so you know, you go to my website, and I'll put it in the chat here in a second, but lancemillerspeaks.com. Go to the store. I've got speech evaluation tips cards. I got speaking tips cards. I got building a championship club tips cards. And they've got the tips cards are free. You can download them for free. I also have training materials on there if you want to go dive deep into how to promote your club or how to do speech evaluation. But speech evaluation needs to, you go down through the Toastmasters form that it's got, and you go, what did the person do well? What did they do well? But you have to have an idea. Here's the thing, you have to have an idea of what a good speech is. Because you can't evaluate, comes back to a really simple concept, but it's so fundamental that we miss it all the time. You can't evaluate a single item. You have to always compare it to something. And so if you were looking at a used car, you're comparing it to what a new car is. So if, as a speaker, if you don't know what a good speech should be, it's really hard to be a good evaluator. So you go, how was the opening? How did the body flow? Did they transition properly through the body? How was the conclusion of the speech? You know, how were their word choices that they used? Was there a clear message that came out of it? These are hard things that came, you know, these are hard, not difficult. These are what I mean. These are factual things you're working with. What was their vocal variety like? What was their stage manners like, or their stage movement gestures like? What was their volume? What was their eye contact like? These are just the fundamental things we can give them feedback on. So it's not, we don't sit there and talk about their content. They put a speech together. You could say, I think the story would work better this way, but I don't think that was a very good story to tell. You know, I've said, I don't think that story fits this project very well, you know, because that's fine, but I wouldn't say that was not a good story to tell, or that I disagree with what you were saying here. So I never talk about their content. It was how did they deliver their content? And my objective is to help them deliver it. And then in this new single speech evaluation form that we have, it goes down through, you know, eye contact. Did the person seem to be prepared? As an example, one of the things I coach people on and I teach a lot is I said, let's try to get down to the problem, not the symptom. So if a person's like speaking and they're really nervous and they're losing their place all the time and they repeat themselves, they got a lot of ums and ahs, that gives you a bunch of stuff to coach them on. Look, you seemed really nervous. You were losing your place all the time. You had 37 ums and ahs. Those are things. Those are all symptoms. I go, what's the problem? I'd ask them from the stage, how much did you rehearse this speech? They go, well, I wrote it coming in on the car. I said, thank you. The next speech, I want you to write, and I want you to give it 10 times at home before you come in. So you get up and give a speech that you're prepared to give. That was the problem. They weren't prepared to give a speech, and they were up there trying to wing it. And that is part of the stuff we develop in Toastmasters. Nobody walks into Toastmasters as a perfect speech evaluator or perfect speaking coach. We're learning how to do that. And so you watch your other speakers. We work a lot in my club on an excellent speech evaluation. And in the early years, we brought in and we had some really dynamic people in the club that were great evaluators. And we really prided ourselves on giving the most accurate evaluations and feedback to our speakers that we could. And as a matter of fact, when I started charging for speech evaluations, I had a hard time doing it because I go, this is what I do in my club for free. You know, when some exec wants me to work, I'll be glad. I'll be glad to. I can't charge you for this. I do it in my club for free. That's how it is so valuable what we learn in Toastmasters. So.
Well, Lance, I want to thank you. I'm going to ask everybody to unmute and give Lance some of that love he said we're supposed to give our members. So let's hear it for all that he shared tonight. That was so wonderful. You know, beautiful.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great,
That was
great to see you. And you guys are close by, so it's fun to get up in the Bay Area and see you when we get back in. And I give a shout out to Henry Miller, who's a good friend of mine, past district governor there. Great to see Henry. And I've had a lot of just great times up in district. There used to be District 4, and now it's 4 and 101, and you guys are expanding up there. So Great to see you. And let's go out there and revive some dead, okay? You know, change some lives. So world needs some good ethical communicators and leaders, as the person asked. And you know, we may not teach ethics, but I think you get it in this organization because you really do learn to understand people.
We want to remind folks too that this will be posted on the D101 YouTube channel. Look for it another week. Don't rush right away and say, where is it? I just went and looked. It's not there. And also Jackie Law, the TLI chair, did post Lance's website in the chat. So please go there and visit his materials. Matter of fact, I have some of his materials from years ago that I still refer to. His cards, they're just beautiful. They're well thought out and well done, as you can imagine from hearing him tonight. So Lance, any final words before we let you maybe get a good night's rest?
Well, the big thing I'm going to say is that I see a lot of people come into Toastmasters and they play it safe, or they don't really, they're trying to be good at Toastmasters, and this game we have is imperfect. And you got to realize it's imperfect. And the whole idea is I said, it's like Home Depot. You're given a hammer and a saw. And what can you build with it? And in my club, we did this and we built something fantastic. And we have the same tools that everybody else does. And we changed so many lives. What I really just implore you to do is don't get too serious about Toastmasters. Keep it fun, but it's really a matter of just doing it. And if Nike had not taken that, I would have just said Toastmasters should, other than it's a great place to fail, I'd probably say Toastmasters, a great place to fail, just do it. So it's just a matter, just get up and do your speech, just get up and do your table topics. It doesn't, you will gain competence by just doing it. And just get in there and do as much as you can and have some fun, and we will change the world.
Thank you so much, Lance. Jackie, is there anything you'd like to share with the folks before they leave, or to thank Lance? Or
yeah, no, just thank you, Lance, for this was the first TLI session of our TLI series, and this was honestly an amazing start. And I'm hoping that the subsequent TLIs are able to match up to your level and informativeness of session.
Well, Jackie, I thank you for that. And are you giving everyone an Alexis or just me a new Lexus for talking at your district? That's a lot of Lexuses that you're giving people.
Yeah.
no, it's just you. It's just you.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It depends on the level of the tier of Lexus.
Does it need tires? Do you need tires?
Exactly. Listen, guys, thanks so much for inviting me up. And I'm glad I was able to squeeze in here. I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now, like you said, on business. And I get home Friday night, and then my club meets on Sunday, where I'll see AJ's smiling face again. And anyway, the big thing is, let's just have some fun with it, get people in, and the world needs these skills, and we can deliver it to them at the club level. You know, just let's have some fun. Okay.
Thank you so much, Lance. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone, for attending. See you next Thursday, the 22nd, for our next TLI. So, and thank you, Jackie. That was wonderful. I took over 8 pages of notes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, let me stop recording for